The foyer still smelled like candle wax and catered shrimp. I hadn't even taken off my coat before Aunt Fiona pulled me aside, wine glass in hand, smile tight like it had been ironed in place. "Just a heads up, Lina, your old room's taken, so is the guest room. The kids claimed them early. You're okay with a motel, right? Let's not make tonight about drama." She said it like she was doing me a kindness, like I was the one creating tension by existing. Behind her, the clatter of forks and champagne glasses. My fiancé, somewhere in the dining room, probably raising a toast under the chandelier I once cleaned every spring. I smoothed my dress, the one I paid for every stitch with money she never believed I earned cleanly. Then I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I'd stopped auditioning for space in a house that was once mine. My name is Lina Marcell. I'm 28, a financial strategist in Boston. And tonight, I was apparently just the niece who used to sleep over. What Fiona didn't know, what no one at that table knew, was that 3 months ago I found out the house was being listed quietly. Off-market, whisper network, private legacy buyers only. She didn't think I'd notice. Didn't know I was the one auditing the portfolio for the acquiring side. Didn't know the buyer was me. Because people like Fiona don't look back. They erase. They don't ask questions like, "Will Lina be hurt?" They ask, "Will it sell fast?" 2 weeks earlier, I overheard a phone call. I had walked into Fiona's kitchen, yes, her kitchen, early for a meeting to grab some old tax records she kept in a dusty file cabinet marked Marion. She didn't see me. Her voice was sharp, not angry, just efficient. "I need it off our books by Q3. I don't care if the buyer guts it. No need to notify Lina. She's not an heir. She was a roof, not a daughter." A roof, not a daughter, that's what she called me. The thing is, I wasn't shocked. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I'd been preparing for this exact moment since I was 14. Since the night she told me while folding towels for her actual children. "It's not that we don't love you, sweetheart. It's just this house runs better when no one's in the way." So I made sure one day I'd own the way. Fiona didn't sell the house because she needed the money. She sold it to cut ties, quietly, surgically. Her husband had died the year before. The company was in debt from his poor investments, and she was planning to move in with her youngest son across state lines. Her plan: liquidate the house, transfer the title, take the money and vanish. But she made one mistake. She listed it through a firm that had just been acquired by the same asset fund I worked with. I saw the property file during a performance audit, and I saw the name, 113 Windale Court, the house I grew up in without ever being acknowledged as living there. That night, at the engagement dinner, I didn't make a scene. I smiled when they passed the toast without my name on it. I laughed politely when someone asked if I was Fiona's assistant, and when they asked me to check on the cake delivery, I didn't refuse. I just walked outside, down the front steps, past the mailbox I used to sneak letters into for my mom, and into the motel room I booked weeks in advance, because I already knew. But before I get to the part where I take the house back, quietly, legally, and without ever raising my voice, let me tell you how I survived growing up as a permanent guest in a home with my mother's last name, but none of her warmth. Her name was Marion Fay, not Mom, in that gentle sitcom way, more like Mom, whispered into a pillow. Mom, written on forms I filled out myself at 12. Mom, with the scent of lemongrass and fingers that knew how to braid hair without tugging. She died in a hospice when I was barely tall enough to look over her hospital bed. The cancer took her quietly, like she taught me to be. Before she passed, she gave me one thing, just one, a green binder. Inside, a list of every place we ever lived, a $500 savings bond in my name, and a handwritten letter that said, "You are not borrowed, Lina, you are built. One day they'll treat you like a guest, but you belong wherever you decide to plant your life, take up space, even when it rattles them. Love always, Marion." I kept that letter tucked between the pages of an old yearbook. The yearbook Fiona wouldn't buy for me, so I saved up for months from lunch money and bought it myself. She asked why I bothered. Pictures are for people who were there. Well, she said, but I was there. I just wasn't seen. After Marion died, Fiona took me in. That was her phrase. Took her in like one of our own. But that house wasn't a home. It was a system. Her kids had rooms. I had a pull-out couch with a dent in the center. Her kids had soccer practice and framed awards. I had a plastic bin with my name on masking tape tucked under the stairs. When guests came over, Fiona would say, "Lina's at a friend's this weekend." Even when I was in the laundry room folding napkins. I was 14 when I learned to fold a bedsheet in the dark so I wouldn't wake anyone. 15 when I realized Fiona had never added me to the family health plan. 16 when I learned to make lunch from dinner scraps without asking. 17 when I applied to Rutgers without telling anyone. No one asked why I never brought friends home. No one noticed when I got the scholarship. But they all showed up at graduation. Front row, cheering, telling people, we raised her. What they never said, who bought her own laptop on layaway, who skipped prom because there wasn't enough for a dress, who went to the city library every day that summer just to feel air conditioning that didn't come with a comment. By the time I turned 22, I had my first finance job. By 25, I was managing six-figure portfolios for people who used to call me sweetheart in a condescending tone. But I never changed my emergency contact. It still said Marion Fay. Even though she was gone, because sometimes legacy isn't about what you inherit. It's about the name you protect, even when no one else does. So when I created the trust to fund the purchase of the house Fiona tried to erase me from, I named it the Marion Fay Trust. Not for business, for justice, for visibility. For that green binder, the taped-up bin under the stairs, the lunchless field trips, the school nights spent doing laundry for the real kids. I wasn't trying to make a point when I bought that house. I wasn't looking for revenge. I just wanted the ground beneath my feet to finally have my name on it. And maybe, just maybe, make space for the girl I used to be. The one who once whispered to a binder, "I'm still here, Mom." Room 204 smelled like bleach and resignation. Twin bed, no amenities, one flickering ceiling light that buzzed every 3 seconds. But it was mine. No one could knock and ask me to move my things. No one could assign me a couch. No one could take my key. And that night I didn't cry. I didn't text Ethan. I didn't call anyone to complain. I opened my laptop and double-checked the folder I'd been building for 8 weeks. Folder name, MF Trust Clean Copy Final 3 months ago during a compliance review at work, I saw it. A listing buried in a high-value estate portfolio. Off-market. Private sale only. 113 Windale Court. The house where I used to dust baseboards with vinegar. The hallway I learned to tiptoe in. The kitchen where my dinner came second, always second. Fiona had used a backdoor listing firm that catered to legacy transitions. Discreet sales. No family drama. But I worked at the fund that acquired that firm's analytics division. So when her property came across my desk, I requested a full disclosure packet and quietly created a new entity, Marcell Holdings LLC, registered in Delaware. Clean address, no name traceable to me. I routed all filings through a legal intermediary. Transferred initial funds, 20% down, from the Marion Fay Trust, which I had set up 2 years prior using the savings bond, a few grants, and the first bonus I ever earned. I didn't just buy the house. I buried the transaction under the same systems they once used to erase me. 2 days before the engagement dinner, I received the pre-approval confirmation. Loan secured. Insurance verified. Title review cleared. My final signature was the only thing missing, but I wanted to wait. Not for drama, for peace. Because poetic justice doesn't require applause, it just requires precision. I scheduled the walkthrough for 10:30 a.m., the morning after the dinner. Fiona had no idea. No clue the girl she asked to fetch cake was about to hold the deed. There's something surgical about silence. You don't need to shout when you own the documents. You don't need to explain when the email trail ends with your initials. And you don't need to ask for a seat at the table when you bought the whole damn table. Saturday, 10:32 a.m., same porch, same peeling white paint, same doormat that still said welcome, even when it never meant it. I stood there, folder in one hand, envelope in the other. Fiona opened the door in pearls and perfume. Her hair was perfectly done, her sarcasm even more so. Back so soon, room 204 not glamorous enough. I didn't flinch, just handed her the envelope. You might want to read that. She glanced at it, smirked, waved me in like I was interrupting her yoga. Inside, the house buzzed. Leftover fruit platters on the table, mimosa towers still half full. The brunch crowd still high on second-hand champagne. Ethan waved from across the room, smiling like nothing had shifted. He didn't know yet, but the man standing in the driveway holding a clipboard did. 2 minutes later, he stepped through the front door. "Hi, I'm here for the final walkthrough and key transfer." The room froze, forks hovered midair. You could hear the espresso machine sputter in the background. And somewhere, the chandelier clinked like it heard before anyone else did. Fiona blinked. "Walkthrough for what?" The agent smiled politely. "This property, 113 Windale, transfers scheduled today. Didn't your agent inform you?" Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I stepped forward, calm, precise. "There's no mistake. I'm the buyer." She laughed, not big, tight, nervous. "You, Lina, sweetheart, let's be real." I didn't move. The paperwork's filed under Marcell Holdings, funded by the Marion Fay Trust. The inspection cleared last week, and the deed was certified 48 hours ago. I paused just long enough for the words to settle. "That house you made me feel invisible in, I now own every square foot." Fiona didn't yell, she didn't curse, she just froze. The way people do when the room isn't theirs anymore, no matter how many memories they think they own. I didn't gloat, didn't offer an explanation. I just turned to Ethan, took his hand, and said quietly, "We won't stay, not tonight, but this house, it's no longer hers to weaponize." I signed the final documents at the kitchen counter, the same one I used to lean against while eating dinner from a plastic plate after everyone else had left. And when I handed the keys to the cleaning crew, yes, I'd brought them too, I didn't look back. Fiona followed me to the foyer, arms stiff, voice tight. "So what now, Lina? You gonna kick us out, parade around like some queen of charity?" I shook my head. "No, you can stay for now." She blinked again. I handed her a second envelope. "I'll be sending lease terms by Monday." Her jaw dropped. "You're charging rent for this house." I looked at her, really looked. Calm, final. "It's not this house anymore. It's mine, and I no longer live here." I didn't slam the door, didn't toss champagne in anyone's face. I just stepped outside, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to look back. That evening, I didn't go back to room 204. I drove straight to my place in Beacon Hill. 400 square feet, exposed brick, no doorman, but it was mine. I unlocked the door, the only key I've ever had that didn't come with a warning label. Inside, it was quiet. No chandelier, no catered shrimp, no whispers asking me to be useful. Just air, just floor, just peace. I hung the deed behind the closet door, not out in the open, not for show. Just where I could see it when I changed clothes, and remember, I didn't need to be loud. I just needed to stop asking permission. Fiona didn't call, didn't text, didn't send some backhanded apology with a passive-aggressive PS. She just went quiet, and I knew that silence wasn't grace. It was retreat. Because for the first time in her life, she didn't know what to say when she wasn't the one writing the script. A few days later, I got a voicemail from her lawyer. MS, Marcell confirming the receipt of your lease documents. Mrs. Aldridge has no objections to the terms at this time. No objections, of course she didn't. What could she say? The new terms were clean, market rate, and legally bulletproof. That Friday, Ethan knocked on my door. No flowers, no fanfare, just 2 cups of coffee and a quiet question. Was it always like that? I didn't dramatize it, didn't try to make it poetic. I just nodded. He didn't flinch, didn't offer a speech, didn't try to fix it. He just handed me a cup and said, "I'm glad you never disappeared." We sat on the floor that night, mismatched cups, leftover takeout, one candle flickering on a stack of finance textbooks. No crystal, no place cards, just air I didn't have to fight for. Later that month, I hosted dinner. Not for approval, not to prove anything, just because it felt like I could. I invited Mary from work, the only one who noticed I used to skip lunch. Ethan brought his sister. We sat on cushions, used plates that didn't match, poured wine that didn't impress anyone, and no one asked me to fetch cake. No one asked me to leave early. No one called me a guest. After dessert, I stepped onto the tiny balcony. The city blinked below, alive, but not demanding, and I exhaled. Not with guilt, not with anger, just certainty. They once told me I didn't belong, that I was lucky to be included, that this family worked better when no one got in the way. But I'm not in their way anymore. I'm in my own lane. I wasn't loud. I wasn't cruel. But I changed everything, not to prove a point, not to punish anyone. Just to remind myself that the quiet ones don't disappear. They rebuild. The girl who once folded sheets in silence, she owns the house now, and she doesn't sleep on couches anymore. Not every story ends in applause. Sometimes it ends in lease terms, a deed in your name, and a kitchen where no one calls you in the way. If you've ever been told you're too quiet to matter, too polite to win, or too forgettable to fight for your place, I hope you remember this. You don't have to raise your voice. You just have to own the room, even if you have to buy it back. This is Lina Marcell, and I don't knock anymore. If you've ever sat in the hallway while someone else took your seat at the table, hit subscribe. We tell stories like yours here, not for noise, but for truth.